This Baylor Bears edition of the Big 12 College Experience on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by our Patreon. Score exclusive perks, contests, including our NFL win totals contest with a $1,000 prize. Join today at the sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon. Hey, and we are also brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app to get last-minute tickets at the lowest price guaranteed. Use the promo code CFBX for the college experience. And welcome, everybody, back to the Big 12 College Experience, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. Sick 'em, we're talking Baylor Bears on the Big 12 Experience. Interest, big year for Dave Aranda here, and year number 4. If you're wondering who you're listening to, I am Moneyline Mac, a.k.a. the former video coordinator for Bob Huggins and Frank Martin. And those watching on youtube.com/the college experience sees that guy on the right in the neon. He's got the Baylor backdrop. He was born in Provo, Utah. He's got family in Ames, Iowa. He is a walking contradiction. He is Rambling Rush. Rush, what's going on this Sick of Monday?
It's good to be back, and as we get closer to every preview, that means we get closer to the season. So hey, we're already at Baylor, and excited to actually start covering some of these games here coming up soon. 12 days, right?
Yeah, I was about to say, I totally forgot that you weren't even on the Oklahoma State because they're all blending together. So, yeah, go check out the first 8 previews. Baylor is number 9, and after this, all we got is 5 to go in the new Big 12/14, soon to be 16, whatever the hell number.
The purgatory Big 12,
yeah,
with Oklahoma and Texas, and then next year's the new Big 12. So,
no doubt, indeed. But if you're wondering who that is in the middle, he is actually a Baylor fan himself, fighting a family civil war. He's got family that's in Waco, Norman, Stillwater. He's everywhere in the Big 12. He is the Big 12 guru. Troy Chewning, ready to talk to Baylor Bears, man?
Hell yeah. I told Sheila she'll have to send this to all of her people. So hopefully this one is we've got a lot of interaction with it. I know Sheila's got a pretty good connection with her alumni fan base, being one of the wackies from Waco. She's probably the most normal Baylor fan I've ever met in my whole fucking life. And now, she's not
is that even a compliment?
But yeah, I'm excited. Oh yeah, Sheila's the best. But still, Waco. I understand why she did it. She tells me the story all the time why she decided to go to take her ROTC scholarship there. It's because it was the most expensive of all the schools that offered her an ROTC scholarship. She said, if I'm going to do this bullshit, I'm going to make myself think I'm getting paid more than the other ones would have been worth.
That was smart, right, financial.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of people like that down there in Baylor. They got a little bit more money in their pockets than you would expect. But I was going to ask you guys just off the top. I know this isn't really planned, but did you get to see the AP Top 25 released?
I did. I glanced through it. I did not. Baylor was not on there. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think they're receiving votes.
I just saw the highest ranked Big 12 team is at 11, and it's Texas. And that makes sense, I guess, for now. But I think that might be like, if a Big 12 team can get to like the 8 or the 6 area of ranking, that's probably as high as you're going to see it get before the cannibalism just crabs in a buckets them back down. No, I was going to put Utah right there at 14, and that's probably first test for them. So I know all guys in Waco were pretty excited about seeing Utah being ranked in the top 15. No, Baylor was receiving votes. I think obviously they have a pretty good chance right there in the second week of the year to make it a lot more about Baylor in the Big 12, and they love that. So, I mean, I do too, but it's going to be an interesting year for them. This one isn't quite as like Kansas-y in separation of what could happen, but it's got a pretty wide variance. I think Baylor could be really good, or Baylor could almost just not quite derail, but, come up significantly short of expectations.
We were literally just talking about that before the show, right before you joined, Troy. Rush and I were like, this is an interesting team. And I think it is ironic, Troy, for you. We just came off Oklahoma State, which is where your dad went. Now we're talking Baylor Bears, where your mom went. Let's recap last year, because it was a weird year. Baylor finished 6-7. They kind of collapsed down the stretch. 7-6 against the number. 2021 was the magical year. Year 2 of the Dave Aranda era, where they were able to win the Big 12 championship. I'm going to go right back to Troy, because this is your team that you follow very closely. Where did it go wrong for Baylor last year? Because they just collapsed at the end.
They couldn't quite get it done against Oklahoma State, if I remember right, at home. I know they lost that game to BYU early in the year, and that one went to overtime, I believe. But I don't know if that's a derailment. Obviously, it's a heartbreaker to lose that game. But you get Oklahoma State at home, and Blake Shapen threw for like 350 yards, and you can't beat him. That one's gotta make you start thinking, I don't know if we've got the firepower if we have our quarterback have one of his better games and we still can't even. I mean, they scored 25 points in that game. Blake Shapen threw for 150 yards. Monterey Baldwin had 174 receiving yards, and they scored 25 points. So I think that was where maybe somebody got some kind of tape or something out, and from that point on, they really struggled. I know they went on a bit of a win streak, but they seem to be a team that if they play to the competition of their opponents, they're going to lose more games than they win.
Rush, where do you think it went wrong for the Baylor Bears?
So I think schedule-wise, if you're looking at it, obviously just getting shellacked by Kansas State, 31-3. I mean, that was their last win was against Oklahoma, and that wasn't really a good Oklahoma team. But Troy talked about it. I mean, you had the altercation week 2 at BYU, and it's too bad those guys aren't playing again this year, especially with BYU's first year in the Big 12.
Yeah.
Jeff Grimes, being the Zach Wilson's old OC. You got the Barrington brothers transferring there. I guess you do have a team from Utah week 2, so that should be a good matchup. We'll see rising status. We're not sure about that. Is not getting the win against Oklahoma State, of course, was tough, as everything that Troy just said there. A really game from our end, that West Virginia game, that Thursday night game where we won 43-40. And I think that was the one where we blocked an extra point and ran it back for 2.
Yes. Yep.
Dude, that was a weird game. And I think that was just that West Virginia game was kind of Baylor in a nutshell last year, where is that's why they call Waco Wacko. It was a very weird team. And as Troy said, if you're going to play to the level of your opponent, Baylor's not going to have a great year, and not a great year. They'll probably go 6-6. I do think that is their floor. But I see Baylor as the dark horse this year. I see them getting closer to that 2021 this year than they did that 2022. And I like how they're coming in this year, especially under the radar. I think that's good for Baylor to be under the radar.
No doubt. And the game that really comes to mind that I felt like summarized their season was the TCU game, the fire drill where they're able to kick the field goal. They should have won that game. They literally dominated from start to finish. TCU was still undefeated. And it seemed like everything bounced their way in 2021. For example, being able to stop Oklahoma State on the 1-yard line, the guy who now plays for him, ironically. And, in 2022, it just didn't bounce their way. But they definitely are a bounce-back opportunity, and we're going to talk about it after we talk about game time, because it is football season. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm going to be traveling to different football games, whether it's the Mountaineers, the Redskins in the NFL. And, if you're going to get the best places to get the best prices, Game Time's the place to do so. Hell, Rush, you use Game Time all the time when looking at prices, right?
Hey, every time I go see Troy at the Nats game, I go pregame at the bullpen, just wait for those tickets. What I really like about Game Time is that they keep their tickets very in the moment. They update a lot. So you wait till people are just kind of trying to dump them right before the game. pick up the cheapest seats, and then go meet up with Troy in his section. I love Game Time. I've been using them since actually in its inception in like 2015, 2016. So yeah, they're my ticket go-to.
I was going to say, I think the last game, actually, our boy Big Pete got tickets for Rush and his buddy just on Game Time. And then they were cheap enough that Big Pete was like, you don't have to worry about giving me $20. I don't give a crap about that. So
yeah, no, I mean, that's what's great about Game Time, because I mean, especially in this day and age with inflation up, man. I mean, it's hard to plan for months in advance. I mean, you just want to go to the game, and sometimes you don't have the funds in months in advance, so you just want to be able to do it a week ahead. So there's exclusive flash deals for football, basketball, baseball. Like you said, it's football season. Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. Like Rush said, if you find the tickets in the same section row like he does at the Nats game, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And the promo code here is CFBX. Snag the tickets without stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use a promo code CFBX for $20 off for your first purchase. Terms and conditions apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CFBX for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, Game Time is time to talk about the Baylor Bears. Baylor Bears, everybody watch on youtube.com/college experience. Over under win total set at 7.5, 20-1 to win the Big 12, 250-1 to win the national championship. And this is year 4 of the Dave Aranda era. He is 20-16, 13-14 in Big 12 games, including a 2021 Big 12 championship. Troy, what are your thoughts on this team coming into this year? I know we just talked about where it kind of went a little bit wrong in 22. I think all of us like him as a potential bounce back candidate, but a lot of left up in the air, I think.
I mean, I definitely like him as a bounce back candidate. You always got to worry about these teams that this isn't like Blake Shapen's coming back for his second year in the offense. Like, he's fully ingrained into that program, and some of those guys, just because the college football, the competition level, albeit very, very high, just compared to some of the inexperienced talent, some of those guys kind of take steps forward they're not really, expecting. And we've all been asking who we think the TCU is of this conference. And I think that this team has the best chance of having those.
I agree.
Close games that they probably shouldn't win and maybe sneak it out, or like a blowout that a team sneak back in, but gets it to 7 or 4 points. And then, okay, guys, let's lock this in and maybe make one more drive. I think this Baylor team's offense has the chance to do quite a bit, and it's all going to be based on Blake Shapen. The brothers, the Barrington brother got to transfer over, is really going to help give him a little bit of protection. I still worry a bit about that offensive line, but I do think their strength, even though it's a Dave Aranda team, might actually be the offense this year.
Well, I think that sums it up right there. Is I actually think the Baylor offense, they stalled sometimes last year, but they really weren't the problem. You kind of had this similar thing going on with Venables at Oklahoma, right? You have a defensive coordinator who's your head coach, and your defense is the weakest end. I know they bring in Powledge back, right? Troy he went to Oregon for last year, was part of their defensive staff. He was on Baylor for 20 and 21, part of that 21 team. So I think him coming back, knowing the Baylor system, especially being on the defensive side of the ball back in 2021, is going to be a big help for them. Why I believe they do turn it around this year and be that dark horse candidate. And then, of course, going back, talking about the offense with Jeff Grimes. I mean, what he did with BYU in 2020. I know he had Zach Wilson at quarterback, and Zach Wilson was he was a machine at the college level. Of course, we won't talk about him wearing a green uniform, but in the blue uniform, he looked pretty good. And then, of course, you got, it is actually kind of funny to see how much of a BYU Baylor kind of rivalry and then these transfers going back and forth is becoming. Like, the altercation that might need to be played every year. It is too bad it's not being played this year, but hey, if you take some of that those concepts that the offense does at BYU. And then you got your kind of defense back on track this year. Watch out for Baylor.
Yeah, the Barrington brothers, baby. They go from Provo to Waco. Let's talk about the portal a little bit because Baylor was very active. I mean, they obviously bring in the Barrington brothers over, multiple wide receivers, skill positions, and then they touch up their defense a little bit through the portal as well, especially on the front side of things. Troy, would you say that they won the portal overall with the additions and versus subtractions?
I would say just they didn't really have to get a bunch of super duper important positions. I mean, the offensive line had to be shored up, but I think that it all comes down to our Liberty University Mike Smith linebacker transfer going to work with Aranda, who's extremely good with the linebacking position. I think that one could be a diamond in the rough. And I said this to Colby earlier, that would be my Jared Verse comparison for this year in all of college football is that guy. I mean, they even have, I had to look his name up to make sure I got it right, but Ed Orgeron's kid is on the staff now too, as just a quality control coach, Parker Orgeron. They've got, so, I mean, Ed's been around some of the practices. I know I sent you guys a few photos, but Mike Smith has all of the coaching and all of the experience now that he needs to take another step forward. And I mean, he was great at Liberty. We'll see what it's like against the big dogs, but once you get convinced that you can play at this level, that confidence factor kind of negates that. As long as you're going out there and your motor is running, typically good things happen. And I think it all kind of hinges on him. I'm going to lean that they won, but that could just be my fan bias.
How about you, Rush? What are your thoughts on these Baylor Bears other than them stealing the Barrington brothers from you?
Yeah, the BYU brothers Barrington. Kind of talked about it too. The old the running back from Oklahoma State joining the crew, and I mean Shapen's going to need that help. Any assistance the running backs and of course wide receivers can do to either get the ball or relieve some of that pressure. I mean Shapen does need to clean it up this year. I think through 10 interceptions last year compared to 18. So you need to cut those tremendously. Well, maybe not tremendously, but at least by probably 3. And add those on his touchdown passes. So, hey, I mean, when you got your running back, Dominic Richardson, that can transfer from in the Big 12, already kind of knows how the conference works. And you got that going for you. I mean, iron sharpens iron, and as kind of Troy was alluding to, is Baylor was in more of a position where they just needed to fill in a couple pieces rather than, hey, we got to build this football team from the transfer portal. So I definitely get when that's the situation. It's hard to say, hey, if you won or lost the portal, but I would say you're kind of already winning if you need to fill in pieces rather than rebuild your team. So I think Baylor is in that bounce back spot. They are where they need to be. And it's whether they can do it or not at this point.
I was going to say, do we need to look into Dominic Richardson and maybe do like a bank account or like background check of some sort? Like has he been receiving money for longer than we think? Like maybe
that's a great question.
Maybe even like jokingly people like started a GoFundMe or Venmo'd him, $1 or $2 here and there for coming up a yard short, and Baylor finally winning a conference championship in football in the longest time since.
He should have cut in on that. He lost that play. That was on him too. So.
Yeah, because he was point shaving. He screwed our guy Gundy.
Point shaving. He was money line shaving.
He screwed our guy Gundy out of the playoff.
I was gonna say, I guess it would have been a little bit more of a standout if he was transferring to one of the Iowa schools instead of to Baylor. But man, there might be some. This might go deeper than we think.
Oh, don't watch Troy be right about this one too, just like Iowa State. And now
yeah, but you know what, though? He's not in a regulated state, so they're probably not going to catch him. So, hey, but let's dive into the schedule on the other side, because this Baylor Bears edition on the Big 12 Experience is brought to you by our Sports Gambling Podcast Patreon. Get over there and sign up for the Patreon to get access 2 exclusive contests, including the NFL Win Totals contest with a $1,000 first place prize. Besides season-long contests, they also have weekly contests just for you patrons out there, plus a monthly SGPN Stories podcast, completely ad-free, full behind-the-scenes from years and years of BD Gens. Hey, there's even a Discord channel for all you patrons out there. Do your part and prevent corporate gambling from pushing their propaganda. Do your part. Sign up today. Go to the sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon. Reminder, sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon. And we are back on the Big 12 College Experience, talking Baylor Bears. Everybody watching on youtube.com/college experience sees the odds below. So we're going to dive into the schedule. And the Baylor Bears, like they usually do, they are going to lead it off. Hold on, my browser's not loading. They're going to lead it off with the in-state foe, Texas State. The Bobcats coming over. Yes, it is a look ahead because they have a big non-conference game on deck, but we all have this as a win, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I've got this as a win.
So we got them at 1-0, and here we go. Utah's coming to town. Everybody's gonna be rowing their boats right up to McLean Stadium, Troy. 11 a.m. kick, man. Welcome to the Big 12, Utes. Careful what you wish for here.
10 a.m. for the Utes.
Yeah,
also,
10 a.m. for the Utes, correct.
Also, is this a time that we should probably start looking into these Pac-12 teams that already had non-con scheduled with Big 12 teams, and now they're just going to lay down in order to support their new conference?
Yeah, Arizona State the week before against Oklahoma State. I like backing all the Big 12 teams. Yeah, I like that.
I had this one as a win when I did a preview with Colby on the end for the Baylor Bears individual team preview, and that was, at this point, that's been way more than a month ago. I think this is very difficult for them to win, but I think they've got a pretty good chance of pulling it off because it's at McLean. If this game was in Utah, I wouldn't really give Baylor much of a shot in the woods. But I'll side with them. I mean, Utah is obviously going to be favored. Pretty much however many points you get from Baylor, I think that would be my more favorable choice, would be taking their points. But I'll go ahead and put them down for a win here.
So, of course, the question of this game is Cameron Rising playing. It could be one of those where he's actually not healed up yet. It could be one of those where they try to play a game of chess and not make you think he's available, but then he is available. I think regardless, Baylor does win this game. From the Utah standpoint of things, I think Utah beats Florida, that Thursday night opener. I think they've had that game scheduled in their head since last year and Anthony Richardson beating them in the Swamp. And I think Utah drops this one. And I think Baylor, whoever's at quarterback for Utah, obviously if it's Cameron Rising, I mean, it'll be closer, but I think Baylor does pretty well in this game, Troy. I think they win by 10.
I absolutely love the situation for Baylor. Rush talked about it, the uncertainty, whether Cam Rising's going to play. Just to put in perspective, Utah opened up as a 10-point favorite against Florida. That thing's down to 7.5. I'm pretty sure he's either going to play. I mean, he's either not going to play or he's going to be compromised. I think that Utah sides on caution here, and they hold him out till the Pac-12 and see if they can just win the Pac-12 one last time and see if they can go to the Rose Bowl for the third straight year. I love Baylor, even if Rising's playing, because I think he's still hurt. But this is a great spot for the Bears to make a statement. I love the early kick too. I think that favors Baylor even more as well. So we all got him 2-0 unanimous. That's a big day for the Big 12, man, because they got Oregon and Texas Tech later in the day as well. So a nice little Big 12, Pac-12 battle, I guess, even though Utah's coming over to the good side. Oh, and Oklahoma State, Arizona State's later that night too. So you got three. You got a little Big 12, Pac-12 challenge, even though we're taking 2 out of the 3 teams. All right, so they're playing. I didn't even know LIU. I'll take a Long Island right now at the beach. They're playing Long Island week 3. How much are they going to win it by here, Troy?
I mean, it's got to be a win, but you would hope they could beat them by 35 or 38 or something like that.
Oh, they will.
This is the ultimate. This is the ultimate sandwich spot, and they'll still win by 50. Coming off the Utah game, Texas is on deck. But yeah, I didn't even know LIU had a football program.
No, they played West Virginia here a couple years ago.
Oh yeah,
they like became just Division I.
Yes.
No, they're smart. That's their business plan. They're like, hey, we'll go get our ass kicked. Just send us $100,000. That's what they do. That's their business model, and it works well. I think they're the Sharks or something too.
It's Sharks.
Yeah. But no, hey Ryan, that week 2 will be great. West Virginia home opener as well. Duquesne. Ryan and Rush show action in Morgantown. It's gonna be good, man. NFL on that Sunday too. Ooh.
Oh, yeah. It's gonna be a long weekend, and then we got Pitt the next weekend. But looking at LIU, I'm glad that you reminded me. That was 2021. The Mountaineers won 66-0, and that wasn't a very good West Virginia team. So LIU actually goes to Ohio U the week before. So yeah, they're just taking that check and moving on. They're like a stripper. So anyway, let's move along. All right, here's the game. Game of the year. Go. Game of the year. Saturday, September 23rd. Those filthy Longhorns, before they go get their ass beat, the SEC, are coming to Waco one last time. Troy, this is a win, man. They're getting this done.
I think this is a win. This probably means more to Baylor. For the first time in a season, their game against Texas is going to mean more than Oklahoma's game against Texas. And it's hard. I mean, it's hard to bet against Dave Aranda with that kind of motivation already being provided. And then in order to bet against him, you have to bet with a drunk lunatic. I'm taking Baylor here. I can't really side with Sarkisian that much. I just have to stay as a Texas hater. There's no way that I can ever pick him.
No doubt.
It would be great if our Texas preview had him go over.
Well, maybe they beat Rice. Maybe
that
might be a field goal game. It's gonna be a close one. Rush, what do you got here?
I think this is my, I guess, bold take of this game. I think winner of this game goes to the Big 12 championship. And because I think what it does is it either propels a team to 4-0. Might do that. I got to remember who Texas plays in the first 3. But either team could be in a spot where they're going 3-1 or 4-0. And I think that's what gets this going. And I know it's Big 12 record, but I mean, to start your Big 12 schedule with the win over Texas would be huge. I have Baylor in this game. I think it's close they're kind of back and forth, maybe for 3 quarters. And then I think the 4th quarter comes. Baylor just opens the floodgates. There's like an interception, pick 6, and it's just the score won't reflect the game because Baylor's probably going to win by 2 touchdowns. But I love Baylor in this game, and like I said, Baylor's my dark horse this year, so got to ride it.
No doubt. And looking, the last 2 times they played in Waco, Bears have got it done. What do you think the line is? There's an early line out on this one. Guess how many points Baylor's getting?
I was going to say they're probably 8.5. 8, yeah.
Take the points.
Really?
What the hell are we doing?
Texas is favored 8 or Baylor's favored 8?
Texas.
Oh, I think you said Baylor was favored 8. I'm like,
no.
Oh, I'm definitely taking I'm taking Baylor. Yeah. You not even take the points. Take the money line.
Yeah, no, I mean, but sometimes the money line's not out yet. So I was like, take the points now and take the money line.
Doesn't have to be. I'll be as soon as it's out. I'm clicking.
That's not gonna stay at 8 for long.
No,
it won't.
No way. Well, so here's my bold take on this game too. Baylor's gonna win, and this is gonna start the Sarkisian hot seat because they're gonna have 2 losses in September by this point when they lose at Alabama. Then they're gonna lose at Baylor. And all of a sudden, that seat's going to get really warm really quick. They went from preseason darlings to on the hot seat. So we got to sick them at 4-0, but, man, they got to go to the bounce house now to end September. Trap spot here, Troy?
Definitely a trap spot here. I want to mark it down as a win and just say because I'm there, that's going to give them the extra 4 points that they need when just knowing that I'm in the stands. But I have this one as a loss, actually. I have them going down to the bounce house and not winning it now. I know I've kind of teased that I think they would win this game, but I kind of want to pull a switcheroo here and take them to beat Texas Tech the next week or the next game instead of going to the Moonbound and actually pull it off. But this is one where if they were to go down to the bounce house after beating Texas and could sneak out this win, maybe this is their we are the TCU game, because they're going to need something crazy in order to win in UCF. And that's the reason why I'm kind of siding with the loss.
I like that.
So, Troy, you're taking my concept. You kind of took the words out of my mouth, but this is why I'm siding with a win here. I think this is a game where I think UCF leads basically every category, but the final score at the end, I think Baylor somehow, like, this is that game where it's like, oh, maybe these guys are destined. Maybe these guys do have a chance. I will say, I know we're going game by game, but we've talked about chunks. I do think they'll lose this game or the next game, but I actually think they go to UCF and I think they win.
Well, I mean, I originally had them winning and losing at Tech, so maybe I'll just stick in that order.
Well, they play Tech in Waco. It's back in Waco. Yeah,
I had them winning and then losing at home. So maybe I'll stick. Yeah, I'll just stick with them getting it done down in the bounce house then, and me getting way too overhyped after that game for the Baylor football program.
So as a group, I said on the other one, I love the spot for UCF, Florida travel spot to Florida, Big 12 opener. I think UCF wins this game. This is like their kind of Super Bowl game. So we got them, but as a group, we have them at 5-0. But you guys already teased that you're going to have them with a letdown spot. Lost to Texas Tech. Ironically, this was kind of the game that propelled Texas Tech's season last year, because Baylor went into Lubbock and absolutely drummed them. And then kind of McGuire got them fixed after that. You guys anticipate a close game, or is this a total payback spot for McGuire and the Red Raiders?
It seems like a payback spot.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Seems like maybe it'll be close. It won't be like a drubbing, but 10, 14, 17 points somewhere in that like 2.5 touchdown area is somewhere I would assume. I mean, I just don't know with 5-0 and now expectations skyrocketing in the matter of 2 weeks. I don't know if this is the best spot for Baylor, even playing at home.
Mm-hmm.
Texas Tech definitely have something to prove after last year, so I'm giving Tech the win.
I think this is that game, Ryan, where they're 5-0. Baylor's like, okay, we're going home, but they play kind of tight. I think this is a reverse of last year, where what was it, like 45-17?
Yeah, they killed
Texas.
them.
Yeah, I think Texas Tech might kill Baylor this year. They got the bye after this. This is where they'll regroup at the bye, and then they play Cincinnati. And it's just one of those games where it's, your old coordinator's going against you. Sometimes he gets you, sometimes he doesn't. And I think McGuire does it in this game, and they'll be at 5-1 going into the bye week.
So I had them losing to UCF. I got them in a bounce back. They get it done. I always like taking the home team, even though last year they went into Lubbock and killed them. But as a group, 5-1 going into the bye. Then they got to go to the Natty in October. Troy, where are you going here? Win?
Yeah, again, just not really, really high on Cincinnati's whole group they have this year. Don't think somebody like Emory Jones is going to be able to do enough to force Blake Shapen to do anything other than just typically manage the game and play a normal Blake Shapen, like 240 yards. Let's run the ball 28 times with, I mean, now they have Reese and Dom Richardson that'll both be able to cycle and stay pretty fresh at that running back position. Yeah, I don't think Cincinnati really has too much of a shot at winning this one.
Yeah, I agree, Troy. This is, you have a bye week, you heal up, you rest up. This is going to be one of those where you, especially, I know you're at Cincinnati and you shouldn't take any game for granted, but this is just going to be the one where you don't want to open up the playbook too much, and you just game manage the hell out of Cincinnati.
And the time of year affects the temperature, obviously, but I think it'll also affect how rowdy that Cincinnati crowd is if they've already dropped a home game or two by this point, and they've only lost one at home in the last 5 or 6 years, like we were talking about on the Cincinnati preview. If they lose a couple of early home games, there's not going to be too much buzz. It's not going to be, a showcase game. We gotta prove that we have these great fans. It's going to be more of a, why did we think Emory Jones was the right idea? I don't really want to go to this game.
Yeah, I looked. Cincinnati would be coming off Iowa State, so I think I had Cincinnati winning that game, so I don't see them winning 2 in a row. I got Baylor grinding this out. Ugly game in Cincinnati, I think, but they find a way to get it done by 1 possession. Speaking of Iowa State, they're going to come to Waco, so as a group, we have them at 6-1.
Yep.
Do they make it 7-1 here against the Gamblers?
I mean, with everything that's going on at Iowa State, and a few of us know that there's still much more to come out. There's still tons of guys that have been discussing whatever is going on, and it's just going to be hard to pick them in any game straight up throughout this whole year. Luckily, the game's in Waco. I think I would be a little scared if it was in Ames, even though there's so much unknown about Iowa State. They just give the teams problems that look like they might be the hope of the Big 12. Iowa State really likes crushing those. But I'm going to give Baylor the win here.
I'm going to give Baylor the win here too. I agree that Iowa State's going to be in a spoiler spot. And I always think when Iowa State and Baylor get together, just throw the records out, throw the team this is always a good game. And I agree. I think this comes down to who has home field. Baylor will have home field. Iowa State, will come up short. I would not be surprised if this is one of those kind of another maybe we should have lost this game. Or when you look back at why, TCU last year, right? When you look back at TCU, it's how did we pull off a season like that? Well, we escaped this game that we probably should have lost. This game was. I think that's one of these games with Iowa State, because this game's always close between Baylor and Iowa State. It's become a great game, a great spot when these two play.
It's always a good game. And last year was a good game. The years before that, it always comes down to 1 possession. I'm going to call for the upset here. If they're 6-1, I think that Iowa State's going to go in there and get a win because they're coming off a bye. So it's the perfect spot for Iowa State. But this game's coming down the wire. There's no way either of these teams are going to blow each other out, even with Iowa State potentially being a dumpster fire with the gambling scandal. But as a group, we got them 7-1, and then they host Dana Holgorsen in Houston. Another win here, Troy?
Yeah, I do. I do have it as another win here. I think this one could get a bit interesting in terms of you might have to ask the offense to actually be pretty efficient throughout the game instead of just grind anything or try to slow anything down and take what the defense gives you. Not that that's going to be super difficult against Houston, but it's still one of those spots where Blake Shapen hasn't proven that he could, consistently outscore another team without making a mistake or two that come back to haunt you. But I just think talent-wise, Baylor's got too much for Houston.
They do, and this is I think Baylor actually has a pretty good schedule when we talk about scheduling, now that it's not a
great
true
schedule
round robin. The only one where you'd be if you could switch one thing, it's actually too bad that this isn't an away game, and one of their next following games against Kansas State or TCU is at Baylor, because you'd probably have way more Baylor fans at Houston than you would Houston fans. But I put that to the side. I think they beat Houston in Waco, and they moved to what, 7-1 from my end.
8-1.
8-1.
There's only 3 left.
You're right.
Yeah.
So even better. 8-1.
So you both got them at 8-1. I got them at 7-2. They go to the Little Apple. I got them beating Houston, by the way. It's home game. But yeah, going to the Little Apple here. Most likely Big 12 championship scenarios flying in the air. Tough spot here. K-State put it on them in Waco last year too. Troy, where do you have this one going?
This will either be, it'll be the same result as last year. It's just going to be one team or the other. I'm going to side with Kansas State getting it done. They're at home. Again, I think they're really in the best position to kind of consistently keep that Kansas State. To consistently keep that winning mentality and program just rolling along. Kansas State can score with them. They would really need a great performance out of their defense to have any chance coming down here at the end. I'm I'm not confident enough to give them a W here when looking at the schedule against K-State. I got them losing this game.
I know it was a bowl game last year and there wasn't a lot on the line, but this game, the Baylor game against Air Force, I know that was actually wasn't it a home game basically? For you guys
they
where
got killed.
Well, it was cold as shit.
It was in Annapolis.
Yeah.
Yeah, was it in Annapolis?
Sheila went to the game because it was Air Force and Baylor, and that's
right.
Two worlds colliding.
Where I'm mixing up another. But anyway,
my Armed Forces Bowl. Yep.
My point is, it was cold, and I think that's what this game is, where the hits just hurt a little more. Manhattan gets rowdy. This is going to be a night game because this could be these teams could see each other again in the Big 12 championship. I'm giving Baylor their next loss here. I think it'll be similar to last year, even though that game was in Waco. But this is just that game where it's tough to get up for, and they lose in Manhattan.
If they're 8-1, and then by the way, they would have already hit the over at 7.5. The target's going to be on their back, like you said. Night game in Manhattan, purple out. Yeah, I got the Cats putting it on the Baylor Bears once again. So that gets us to the next week. 8-2 coming down the stretch. I have them at 7-3. You guys both 8-2. Revenge here, maybe. They got to go to TCU. This is like kind of a new rivalry game. Troy, what are you doing here, man? This is going to be a hell of a game.
I mean, this
should be the last week. Why are they playing second to last week?
I really don't know. I think it's more of the West Virginia has kind of become a bit of a rivalry game that they didn't expect, whereas TCU and Baylor has always been, no, my religion that's very slightly different than yours is actually right and yours is wrong.
I get the Mormons involved too.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good thing they don't play on Sundays. Everybody would be a little too busy.
This is a brutal back-to-back road spot.
This is
in November, man. My God,
it's got to be a revenge game here for Baylor, though. I think TCU might have a bit of a drop, and by this point in time in the season, they might have a little bit less to play for. And granted, it is a rivalry game, and that stuff might not matter as much as it typically would. But I've got Baylor going down to TCU in Fort Worth and winning this football game.
I like it.
Yeah, if Baylor's going to compete for a Big 12 championship, they have to win a couple of these away games, whether it's UCF, whether it's TCU. And I think they beat TCU at TCU. I think TCU will also be in a position where they, because it is a rivalry game, where they'll try to play spoiler, because I think we've talked about it a little. We've hinted at it. We still got to talk about TCU. But I think they're going to be in a position where those one possession games kind of go against them this year. And I think by this point, the question is going to be for TCU. Are they going to get up for the rivalry game, or are they going to kind of lay down? I think it'll be, especially with it being in Fort Worth, it'll be a closer game. I could see Baylor pulling away at the end. And I have Baylor at 9-2 after this game, beating TCU in Fort Worth.
It's really going to help them that they play that fire drill field goal kick highlight probably once every 35 minutes the whole week before this game.
Yes. By the way, Troy, that game was last year against Air Force. It wasn't. It was in Fort Worth.
Okay.
Yeah, so I thought that game was in.
It's because Air Force and Duke are both blue and white. They played Duke the year before.
Yeah.
Man, I go back and forth on this game, because I'm looking at it like the last two times these two teams have met, TCU won by 1, TCU won by 2. Like every time it comes down to the wire with these two teams. I'll probably say Baylor, just off of they should have won last year. They get it done here. They win by a field goal, walk-off field goal back at them. So we got them at 9-2 with the West Virginia Mountaineers coming in the final week of the season, winning your in type scenario for the Baylor Bears. Do they finish out a double-digit win season here, Troy?
Is Neil Brown still the coach?
In our scenario, he is.
Yes.
With the way that we played out their scenario, 6-6.
The Ryan and Rush show says yes.
Yes.
So if that's the case, Baylor's not really that impressive. They just started playing West Virginia in 2012, I believe. and they're 4-7 or something like that all time, 3-8 or 4-7 or something. You guys always give Baylor fits, and this one has that stink all over it of this team could have won this game and gotten in. I think West Virginia has a chance to win this football game.
I don't. It just seems like you're right. We do well against Baylor, but it's usually in Morgantown. I think we've beaten Baylor once in Waco. Is that what we figured out when we did West Virginia?
Yes.
Preview. So whoever the home team in this game, I feel like usually is going to win it. Baylor will win this game. But the thing is, we usually get killed in Waco. We've gotten destroyed there before.
So I think
2 years ago we got whacked.
We got crushed.
I think the scenario for West Virginia, for me to definitively give them a win, is they would need an interim coach where this was like his third week and they had a chance to get to like 6 wins or 5 wins because they won a game that was unexpected with an interim coach. And the kids are like, yeah, we're going to do it for our new guy or something like that. But there's like, again, the where they're at as a program just makes me, I kind of have to side with Baylor.
Yeah, no, it's right. Well, I think what gets this game to West Virginia is if for some reason both of them enter this game 5-6.
Oh yeah.
Where a 6-6 bowl season is going to mean way more to West Virginia and potentially Neil Brown than Baylor would rather compete for, BCS and playoffs than they'd rather just, in the season type of right there type of thing. So that's the only chance I think West Virginia has is winning this game if they're both 5-6. But
I think this is I agree with Troy that this is going to be a tight game because for some reason Neil's teams have been good in November where they've won their last road game, the final game of the year, 3 out of his 4 years. The only time that they didn't was in Ames where they got housed. But last year they went in Stillwater. They won at Kansas year before that. And then they won at TCU his first year. I kind of think Baylor gets it done by like a field goal. Tight game. Baylor squeaks it out. But I think West Virginia's already bowling by then. I think they finished 6-6. And Baylor finished out. So Baylor goes 10-2.
Mm-hmm.
This is probably our favorite overplay so far. I would agree.
Yeah, this was the when we were talking about West Virginia and Oklahoma State being a favorite, this was another one that I looked at and was like, man, only 7.5 with this kind of, it's
they
not
play 8 home games.
It's not a soft schedule, but where it's soft, they get those games where they can roll through and get 3 wins in a chunk in a short period of time. And I'm pretty high on this over myself as well. I think there's a pretty good chance to go ahead and parlay all 3. WVU, Oklahoma State, and Baylor.
I like it.
They'll all be better than, average for 2 of them and significantly below average for West Virginia. I think all 3 of those teams are better than any amount of credit that they're getting.
Completely agreed. I think we would have thrown Iowa State in there too until the shit went down with them. So now they got too much distractions. Rush, what do you think of that parlay? I like that play. I think we should put that. That should be our Big 12 college experience parlay.
I like it. Let's do it. We'll book it. And like I said, going back to before we even did this preview, and we're just kind of talking about the Big 12 in general, is I think Baylor's a dark horse this year. I really like them to bounce back. I think their schedule lines up perfectly. Of course, health is always the factor. You can say that about any team. It is the game of football. Collision sport, not a contact sport. But if all goes according to plan, health-wise, and Powledge comes in and can be the defensive coordinator that he's capable of doing, Jeff Grimes, does Jeff Grimes things, then Baylor could be in playoff contention. Could. Probably more New Year's Six Bowl, but I think they're at least going to the Big 12 championship this year.
I was just about to say, because Troy and I were looking at odds the other day for teams to make the Big 12 championship, not to win it, but to make it. Obviously, 20-1 to win it. To make the title game for the Baylor Bears, plus 650.
I like it.
Yeah, and we liked Oklahoma State 15-1. So, you could take 2 nice long shots with both of those teams right there. So. Could we see a rematch from 2021? Let me ask you that, Troy.
After
doing these last 2 previews,
it would be you would, in a normal year, it would be one of the better storylines to see that rematch. But I think there's going to be one of the two outgoing teams of the Big 12 that are putting their hand in for that title game between Texas or Oklahoma. And I mean, they don't get Oklahoma on the schedule. It would be pretty cool to have them match up against Oklahoma and beat them the same way we would hope any team got matched up and beat them in that conference title game. Yeah. I think it's more likely that you see that Kansas State Baylor rematch in the Big 12 title.
I was thinking the same thing. Well, what would be crazy is if you got the the Oklahoma State and the Baylor rematch, and then Oklahoma State won this one. and what's his name? The running back was on the wrong side of history both times. That would be unfortunate, no but I do like both bets, and I think one of them will. Oklahoma. It's not going to be both of them. It won't be Oklahoma State, and it won't be Baylor. But it'll be one of them. I think that.
I'm pissed off that they only have odds to make the playoff for Oklahoma and Texas. I want to hit some of these other teams that I think are going to beat those two sorry asses. So, yeah, no, we got to keep monitoring them. We'll give out. I think this team's a candidate to make the playoff if things break right. All right, so what's the floor? We've talked about what the ceiling is. 11-1 playoffs. They win the Big 12. What's the floor, Rush?
6-6. I mean, this team is too good not to go 6-6. Even
and the
if
schedule's too good.
Schedule and it's too good of a schedule. I agree. I mean, right away. I mean, I know you're playing Utah, but I mean, there's 2 wins, right? Basically, automatically in your non-con. I mean, 4 Big 12 wins from there against a Cincinnati and an Iowa State and a Houston. And they'll win another one besides. I mean, there's 6 right there. So
yeah,
they'll at least go 6-6. But I know the over/under's 7.5. So
I could see him having a letdown in one of the games that looks like it should be an easy win between a team like Cincinnati, or you're looking at maybe like a not full Iowa State or a Houston team that's reeling at the end of the year, or West Virginia or something like that. But I don't think you're going to see them lose 3 or 4 of those. And so I'm kind of right around that 6-6 is still very, very possible, but it's anything worse than that is going to be, there'd have to be some kind of super tragic thing going on.
No, I agree. I think 6-6. I can't see a world where they don't go bowling. So
let me ask a question, Troy. Do you see what would it have to be for Aranda's seat to get hot?
I think they like him too much. He could probably win more than 3 games and they would just roll with him.
It's not this year, but he would start kind of.
Oh yeah, he would definitely start next year with a little bit of, hey, you should probably get back to competing for conference titles. I don't like if he goes 6-6, you might see like the pilot light of the heater come on, but they haven't, like the gas pipe is still completely turned off. There's nothing yet. So I don't think 6-6 is enough to really get that any kind of warm. Maybe if they only won 3 or 4 games, you would then hear the chatter about a month before the season, the next year or something like that.
The boosters would start getting their paychecks ready, but they wouldn't be
bring back yet. Matt Rule.
Our West Virginia, Baylor, Oklahoma State over parlay is plus 500.
I like it. Yeah, let's lock that in. So we'll give that out. That'll be on our best bets episode. Will be here before we know, because we only got 5 teams left. So next up is the team that went to the national championship, the rival of the Baylor Bears, TCU Horned Frogs. But before we get out of there, Rambling Rush, tell everybody where to find you.
At Rambling Rush, Twitter, Instagram, and then for the West Virginia version, the Ryan and Rush Show, at Ryan and Rush Show, Twitter and Instagram as well. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, and of course, as always, appreciate all the support.
That's the TCU thing, right?
Horn. Frogs down.
Frogs down.
The other horns down. Yeah, the frogs down.
Yeah, you guys can find me on Twitter at Troy Chewning. You can read it or watch it on YouTube or wherever else you can watch videos that circle around online instantly as soon as they're posted to billions and billions of spots. It's TroyChewning, and there will be some good Baylor memes for sure being posted. Anytime Ed Orgeron's in the stands, we're gonna be photoshopping in cheerleaders next to him and all that kind of stuff. So
you guys can find me at moneyline_Mac. We are all on the Baylor Bears over. Lock that up. Next up's TCU Horned Frogs. Let it ride.